Ohio State head football coach Ryan Day has caught a lot of heat lately for not being able to beat his arch-rival Michigan, despite his teams making the playoff pretty consistently and winning a ton of games. Now, there may not be a coach who has accomplished more, that is under more pressure in this huge weekend slate of games. Now, Saturday in South Bend against the Irish will either stoke those fires under his feet or help the college football realm remember that Day is an elite coach. Let's be honest. There's probably not another coach as underappreciated as Ryan Day is. Now, if Ohio State does drop this game to Notre Dame with a trip to Michigan at the end of the year, Day may catch more strays than a humane society. Now, the question is, does he deserve it? And the answer is hell no, he doesn't. But in the what have you done for me today world of college football, there will be even more questions about his ability to rise to the top. Now, I'm from the Iron Bowl country, so I understand the importance of beating your rival, especially when it's a top 3 rivalry in all of the sport. But let's not forget how great Ryan Day has been. He hasn't lost more than 2 games in a season during his head coaching career at Ohio State. He's 38-3 in the Big Ten overall, with 2 Big Ten titles, 3 division titles, and he's made the college football playoff 3 times. But there's still some doubt about him in some corners of the college football world. And a loss this Saturday will heat those up significantly. Now, this weekend, regardless of what happens, it won't sink Ohio State, but match that with a potential 3rd straight loss to Michigan in the Big House, and there will inevitably be a problem. Now, I'll tell Ohio State fans this. I know the standard is really high, and it should be. But I would be careful when it comes to Ryan Day, especially with what Eberflus is doing there with the Bears, because sometimes you don't know what you got till it's gone. David Cohn knows a little bit about this rivalry, former Michigan quarterback.
Told you.
My brother knows a lot about this rivalry too, because he loves college football.
I know football. That's why I know a lot about this rivalry.
And David, listen, you got to beat your rival, right? Like it's you do in that rivalry you do. I mean, it's something you can't
look.
Keep this reverberating.
Right now. Everything's good right now.
Well, you're a Michigan guy, but in the grand scheme of things, you lose too many against your arch rival, you're 34 and out the door. And I know Ryan Day. The script's kind of flipped with Michigan, right? After they were just beating them relentlessly. I mean, into submission for a while. Now Jim Harbaugh's got it going, but do you think he's underappreciated?
Well, a little bit, but you have to understand that, Urban Meyer completely owned Jim Harbaugh in this rivalry. Like that was the thing. Jim Harbaugh couldn't crack the Urban Meyer code, and I think it just speaks to how great of a coach Urban Meyer is. Yesterday, we talked about the fact that Alabama is playing some close games now, and they lose occasionally, and they don't win a championship every 3 years. That's what's normal. What they were doing before is not normal. So that's what I say about the Buckeyes as well. Like what we're seeing now is just a little bit more normal because they had been the gold standard in the conference for so long. But a rivalry that great, like you talked about, it swings. It's a pendulum, right? So yes, now Michigan's gotten back-to-back victories. I know the Buckeyes are going to come into Ann Arbor later this year around Thanksgiving week, and they're going to be champing at the bit to win that game. But I'm so excited for this matchup this weekend because this is the perfect time for this game, Irish and Buckeyes. It didn't happen the first week of the season or the second week of the season. It's not towards the end of the year. We're getting it at a perfect time because both of these teams have gotten off to a good start. They've gotten to know, the personnel that they're going to be moving forward with. And the Buckeyes have gotten off to a slow start in some of these games, which isn't surprising. I mean, you're starting a new quarterback, and the last 4 or 5 have all been Heisman Trophy finalists. For the Buckeyes specifically, 10-3 against Indiana at the end of the first half, 14-7 against Youngstown State at the end of the first quarter, 7-3 at the end of the first quarter against Western Kentucky, but then they come out of nowhere and they'll score 35 points in a quarter, right? And then on the flip side of that is, Notre Dame finally has their quarterback. I mean, Sam Hartman is the all-time passing touchdown leader in the ACC. A few seasons ago, if we were watching this matchup, you'd say, well, it's a great brand matchup, but the Buckeyes are just too skilled at every position. They're just going to out-talent the Irish. That's just what's going to happen. That may be what happens Saturday, but now I'm looking at Notre Dame, and I'm saying Sam Hartman's a top 10 quarterback in the country. They have a top 10 running back in the country in Audric Estime. They have the best left tackle in the game with Joe Alt. Can the defense hold up against Marvin Harrison Jr. and some of these elite weapons that the Buckeyes have to give the Irish a chance? That's what I'm interested to see.
Yeah, I tell everybody, make sure you hit that like button, drop a comment. And also subscribe if you're not subscribed. Blaine, Notre Dame hasn't beaten Ohio State.
Woo!
Anybody want to guess the year? Since when?
Give me a hint.
It's interesting.
You're not going to guess it. I'm going to tell you, 1936.
No hint.
Really?
It's the last time Notre Dame beat Ohio State.
How many times have they played since then? Do you know?
Man, I need to go back and look at that. That was kind of one of the stats that blew my mind. Blaine, you look at Sam Hartman. One of the biggest questions, and I don't think there was a better fit in the transfer portal quarterback to a system than Sam Hartman to Notre Dame. It just makes sense. Like I said, he could go into the locker room and go put the leprechaun outfit on, start dancing on the sidelines, and I wouldn't know the difference. I mean, just fits in perfectly. Sam Hartman, 13 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards passing, no interceptions. Remember, when he was coming over from Wake Forest, one of the biggest worries was his turnover rate. Well, one thing we said during the offseason, and it's held true at least to this point, and I know, the best team they played, NC State, which is not a bad team, I'm a big Brendan Armstrong guy, is that he had to throw so much and he had to try and fit so many balls into windows to give them a chance to outscore people because they wouldn't stop people at Wake Forest.
Yeah.
Now at Notre Dame, he doesn't have to go out there, hop in a phone booth, and put the cape on. When you look at this matchup, and I know we have keys to victory on Friday, and we're going to revisit it, but in the past, it seems to me that the way that Ohio State and these kind of high-flying teams would beat Notre Dame was spread them out, get them in space, and let their athletes out-athlete them on the edge. But when I look at this Notre Dame defense, and I see the guys running around that they have in the back end, the guys even at linebacker, I think, and look, Marvin Harrison Jr. is incredible, Egbuka is incredible. I mean, we can go through the list. But I think Notre Dame, at least from keeping everything in front, doesn't have to be scared to death of giving up explosive play after explosive play.
Well, usually the knock on Notre Dame is they're not athletic enough, right? Especially to stay with a bunch of guys like Ohio State with the Lamborghinis they have running out wide a receiver. But this Notre Dame team, if you've watched them from day in and day out, they're athletic enough to play with these guys. All right, they can run one high safety and play with these guys from a corner standpoint. I mean, you have an All-American at corner. I think you brought back 2 corners, and they've been playing well throughout the year. But I'm so interested in this game from a game plan standpoint. If you're Ohio State, how do you attack Notre Dame? Right? Do you go out wide to your best players? All right. I don't think Notre Dame's good in the box, but I wouldn't say phenomenal in the box. This game is so interesting for Ryan Day, and just the fact that Ryan Day is on the hot seat is just funny to me.
I don't think he's on the hot seat.
If he loses, right? If he loses this game, right, and loses to Michigan, what big game has Ryan Day won?
I mean, you look, he's won a game in the college football playoff. He's
couple conference
championships. He's beaten Michigan multiple times. I mean, Ryan Day's won big games.
Would you say Ryan Day's won more big games than Jim Harbaugh?
Yes. Jim Harbaugh, what's his record in the bowl games?
It's like 1-7.
Yeah. So this isn't a Ryan Day's never won the big game. You can make, and I know Brian Kelly's won a lot of games. You can make a better argument that Brian Kelly hasn't won as many big games as Ryan Day has. The question is the trajectory of where Ohio State is going the last couple years. And look, last year, I mean, they gave Georgia a run for their money in the college football playoff. So to me, it's more the Michigan angle. It's the rivalry angle. Because I know if Auburn went 11-1 every year for 5 straight years and that one loss was to Alabama, people would be pissed. People would be pissed. And on the flip side, if they went 1-11 for 5 straight years and you beat Alabama 5 straight times, you'd have a lot harder time firing the head coach, as crazy as that sounds. And there's only a couple rivalries that are like that. But going back to the schematics of this game, I feel like the clock rule is so much in Notre Dame's favor, the clock change here, because they have that offensive line. I like Ohio State's defense, but I don't think they're elite, right? They did only give up 10 points to a Western Kentucky team that's pretty explosive on offense. Now, Western Kentucky's terrible on defense, but if you're Notre Dame, do you kind of take a page out of the Florida playbook against Tennessee, try and take away time of possession, run, play action? You don't have to throw Sam Hartman 50 times. And listen, there's some questions about the skill players outside of Audric Estime for Notre Dame on the outside. I mean, Greathouse, those guys, they're young, they're talented, but they're really young. And we know Ohio State's talented on defense. The chess match of, do you try and limit Ohio State possessions? And then on the other side, David, if you're Ohio State, with Kyle McCord, you went to Indiana, the first game, which was an easy test, but Indiana's not a great football team. He really hasn't been tested on the road yet against a team that can compete with Ohio State in a crazy environment in a big game. I liken this, right, to when we see Carson Beck have to go on the road for Georgia in one of his first big games. And this is, to me, the chance for Sam Hartman to have a Heisman moment. You have to have Heisman opportunities to have Heisman moments against a big-time team. He's going to have multiple ones. But when you look, if you're Notre Dame, starting with them, are you trying to sit on the ball a little bit?
Well, I'm trying to run my game plan, and their game plan is to be a run-first team. That's why I brought up the Buckeyes starting slow in some of these games. Yeah, you can start 7-3 at the end of the first quarter against Western Kentucky and still win the football game 63-10. But if you get off to a slow start against the Irish, you may not see the football again for a while. That's one of the things we were talking about with Florida and Tennessee. I mean, Florida had a 7.5-minute drive. They didn't even score any points, but they're still winning. Why? Because Josh Heupel's offense is on the sideline. So I think that's what you're going to see. And I don't know if it's sit on the ball more. I mean, Sam Hartman's still averaging.
Well, what I mean by that is let the play clock go down before you snap it. Are you going to say, listen, Sam,
and that's their
when
identity,
we get the ball, let's wait till it's at 12.
That's their identity. And I think they are going to do that, and they do that really well. And I have the stats here in front of me. So Notre Dame's averaging, this is what's surprising, Notre Dame's averaging more total yards a game than the Buckeyes are. Now, they have that extra game because they played in the week zero, but over 500 yards of offense, the Buckeyes are at 474. Yards allowed on defense, the Notre Dame is at 234, Buckeyes at 223, so very similar there. Interesting thing, though, Notre Dame is averaging over 200 rush yards a game with Audric Estime and that offensive line. The Buckeyes are giving up 83 yards a game on the ground. So really stout in the run game. So that's a battle that I'm interested to see. Like if Notre Dame is going to try and control the clock on the ground and you're running on 1st and 10 or you're running on 2nd and 8, if that gets stuffed and Sam Hartman starts to get into 3rd and long, that's going to play into the Buckeyes.
Yeah. And Blaine, real quickly before we move off this, I do want to let everybody know Notre Dame right now as we record this. By the way, if you're on social media, Twitter, X, whatever it is, make sure you throw us a follow. Notre Dame's a 3.5-point underdog at home. At the over-under is 54.5 right now. I really like that under. Just looking at it off the top. Blaine, if you're Notre Dame and you know Kyle McCord is coming into a hostile environment, I think there was some deep thought process by Ryan Day before Western Kentucky saying, hey, listen, Kyle McCord's our guy going up against the defense of Western Kentucky that got gutted after last year. It's not a good defensive team at all with the Hilltoppers. Do you sit here and say, okay, let's go ahead and try and even though Ohio State has 2 new tackles and a new center, go ahead and try and stuff the run and make Kyle McCord beat us with his arm, but then you sit back and think, well, they got Marvin Harrison Jr. and Egbuka, and all these guys. Or do you just play it even? You just play it even, straight up. Like, where are the pressure points? Because if you're going to play 0 and bring heat,
there's no way you play 0.
There's no way, right?
I'd make him dink and dunk down the field.
Yeah, do not play 0.
Go make him earn it.
I always want to walk in with the mindset is that your best player is not going to beat me.
Yeah, I'm with
Marvin Harrison Jr. is not going to beat me. You're going to have to find another way to beat me running the ball. Yeah. I think if you watch Notre Dame, I mean, their front's good enough not to bring extra people to limit.
Yeah, and this is not Ohio State's best offensive
No, and Ohio State hasn't been tested up front on both sides of the ball. I know you brought up they gave up 80 rushing yards, which is great, but you played Youngstown State and Indiana. So this test against that offensive line,
you're going to find out.
You will find out extremely
Joe, Control, Alt, Delete your defensive lines over there at left tackle.
I agree with that point. Like, make them go down the field consistently and earn it. Tyreek Hill was talking about this with Bill Belichick's game plans against him. Always puts the fastest guy on him with another safety over the top. Constantly getting bracket coverage and double coverage. Well, do that. And if the Buckeyes beat you on the ground, which they can do, I've watched it for years. Ezekiel Elliott, Beanie Wells, all of these guys can beat you on the ground, but make them go do that because then they're also chewing clock, which I think plays in Notre Dame's favor.
I think one thing in this game would be huge, but haven't gotten brought up is red zone. Or who can score in the red zone? Field goals or touchdowns?
4-point
score
play.
Touchdowns. That's what it's gonna come down to.
Without a doubt. Guys, you tired of wasting your money on testosterone booster products that don't work?
Yes.
I don't blame you, okay? I don't hold you personally responsible for that, all right? That's our sponsor, Nugenix Total T. It lets you try before you buy on their supply. Get a complimentary sample when you text 231-231, that's the number, and you enter keyword Crain. All right, that's C-R-A-I-N. Not like the bird, It's CRAIN when you text 231-231. Look, I'm getting older. Your boy's almost, yeah, you are too. You're about 30, so I don't want to hear from you. Look, and sometimes you have less energy. Let's be honest, okay? Sometimes you're turning into Gandalf the Grey. I want to go more Gandalf the White, all right? And that's due to a natural loss of testosterone, okay? Why are you looking at me like that? You decided to do something about it. I did, and I got Nugenix. How about that?
It really, guys, it really works.
So
yeah, but Blaine was basically.
I take it and just from an energy and even a mentality standpoint, you feel it on a daily basis. So I'm telling you, use it.
Yeah, you feel revived, energized, and you're working out like you used to. You go in there and just a massive weight up. So get a complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T when you text 231-231 and enter keyword Crain. Text now, and you get a bottle of Nugenix Thermo X. Their newest and most powerful fat incinerator ever, with key ingredients to help you lose fat fast and get lean even faster. Absolutely free, or as Miss Frizzle, we called it when I used to watch a Magic School Bus. Great. So watch text 231-231 and enter keyword Crain, C-R-A-I-N. Also, texting enrolls you into a reoccurring automated text message system, okay? Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates apply. Number one doctor recommended brand by primary care physicians based on an independent survey, all right, conducted by the great people over there at IQVIA, and that was in 2022.
Jake, I was listening to you earlier talking about Notre Dame, Ohio State, and I know you said take a page out of Florida's playbook. I would say take a page out of Michigan's playbook because of the last 2 years when we beat them. Last year we took some of their punches early. We kind of kept pace with them, and then we leaned on our ground game, controlled the clock, and eventually, Donovan Edwards with 2 big runs put them away. I think Notre Dame is more like that. And I feel like if they play that same type of strategy, they'll definitely win.
I think it's methodical, right? But you're not having to we talk about Jalen Milroe in Alabama trying to force a square peg in a round hole. You're not having to do that with being methodical, because that's who Notre Dame is. They want to run the ball. You want to play action. They don't need to lean on their young skill players on the outside. They don't need to be the entree. They need to be the garlic mashed potatoes. They need to be the toasted butter bread. They need to be the Brussels sprouts. They don't need to be the steak, right? The running game is the steak with Estime and that offensive line and getting to that play action game. And that runs the clock. So, yeah, I think it's a lot of it. And David, I think you said this. The best part about it for Notre Dame is you're just being yourself.
You're just being yourself, and them being themselves looks a lot like Michigan. So
That's exactly
Michael,
right.
I think you're exactly right. You're really onto something there because they want to run the football first. Even last year, I was looking at that run game thinking, man, this does look a lot like Michigan. This looks a lot like what Georgia wants to do. But what was the missing piece? Didn't have Sam Hartman at quarterback like you do now. You add him into the equation where he can throw for 300 yards a game if you need to get into that. Then that's what makes it interesting. The question will be, what are the Buckeyes going to do on defense? Because remember that Michigan game was close last year for a while until they decided to play cover zero the entire second half. And I understand why they did it. Go shut down that run game. Go shut down Donovan Edwards. Make J.J. McCarthy beat us. Oh, guess what? He did. Branch nod for a touchdown. Wheel route down the sideline for a touchdown. So that he ended up exposing that cover zero. Are they going to do the same against Sam Hartman?
Yeah.
Well, but yeah, you're talking about last year, J.J. McCarthy was kind of unproven commodity up to that point, but Sam Hartman is a proven commodity, so that kind of gives Ohio State some pause, if you will, about loading the box. So, it's going to be interesting, and I would say on the other side, I know you guys talked about Marvin Harrison Jr., Micah Buka, and those guys. Honestly, if, like you said, if Ohio State can rush the passer without bringing extra guys, you make Kyle McCord uncomfortable. Sometimes the best pass defense is your pass rush.
For sure. Well, again, it's getting him into third and predictable, right? That's the whole goal. The thing is, would you rather make Kyle McCord try and beat you by throwing to Ohio State's best players on their team, or would you try and make Ohio State beat you dribbling with their left? That's what it comes down to. But again, Kyle McCord, we haven't seen him. You still got to throw it where they can catch it. Like at the end of the day, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Buka and all these guys, they can only do so much. So, Michael, great call, man. That's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on.
Good stuff, Michael. Appreciate it. Call in next week after the game, all right?
YouTube, hello. Good to see you. Here, please, step right in. And also, while you're here, subscribe. Hit that like button. Turn the notification bell on. And tell your friends about us, because that'd be super duper sweet.